You know, when we think about the great names of history, we usually think of kings, emperors, generals. But what if I told you one of the most powerful empire builders of all time wasn't a king at all? What if she was a queen whose story has been hiding right under our noses? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on Atossa.
Seriously, take a second. Who is the most powerful woman you've probably never heard of? It's a tough one, right? While you're thinking, let me throw a name into the ring. A woman who was, and I mean this literally, the center of gravity for the largest empire the world had ever seen up to that point.
Her name was Atossa. And look, she wasn't just a queen. She was the living, breathing link. The bridge between the guy who founded the Persian Achaemenid Empire, the guy who organized it, and the guy who inherited it all. To put it simply, without her, the whole thing might have fallen apart. She was the glue.
So you're probably asking, how on earth did she get that powerful? Well, to get to the bottom of that, you have to start with her bloodline. Because in the ancient Persian court, your family tree wasn't just important, it was literally everything.
And get this, even her name carried this incredible weight. In Old Persian, it was Atossa, which means something like the well-endowed. Now, this wasn't just some cool, powerful name. It was directly tied to the patrons of the prophet Zoroaster. So right from birth, people saw her as not just royal, but like divinely blessed. Talk about being born into it.
And here it is. This is the absolute core of her power. She was the daughter of Cyrus the Great. The Cyrus the Great, the founder of the whole empire. That connection, that bloodline, it made her the single most valuable political asset of her time. If you wanted to rule, you didn't just want her on your side, you needed her.
And they all knew it. I mean, just look at this timeline. It's insane. It's a total mess. After her father Cyrus dies, Atossa is basically passed around like a living crown from one ruler to the next. First, her own brother, then some usurper who seizes the throne, and finally the general, Darius, who overthrows him. Think about that. Through all these bloody coups and chaos, she is the one constant. She's the key to the throne that every single one of these men had to have.
Okay, so why? Why was she so indispensable? It all comes down to this really important Persian concept called khwarena. The best way to think of it is like a divine royal glory, a kind of supernatural legitimacy that was believed to flow right through the bloodline of Cyrus. And Atossa, she was the living, breathing vessel of that khwarena. So for any guy who wanted to be king, marrying her wasn't just a smart political move, it was the only way to say, hey, God wants me to be in charge. It was non-negotiable.
But here's the thing about Atossa. She was never, ever just a passive symbol. She was a brilliant political operator who didn't just survive this brutal Game of Thrones, she completely rewrote the rulebook.
And this, right here, is her masterpiece. King Darius has a huge problem, a succession crisis. On one side, you have his eldest son, Artabazanes. He's got the traditional claim, right? Firstborn. But on the other side, you've got Atossa's son, Xerxes. And Xerxes has an ace up his sleeve. The big difference? Artabazanes was born when Darius was just some guy, a nobleman. But Xerxes? Well, Xerxes was born after Darius was already king. Oh, and yeah, he also happened to be the grandson of Cyrus the Great. And this is exactly where Atossa makes her move.
This is just pure political genius. Watch how she does this. She builds this argument that no one can possibly beat. First, she just hammers on the lineage card. My son is the direct descendant of our glorious founder, Cyrus. Then, and this is the brilliant part, she basically invents a whole new rule for the empire. The true heir has to be born in the purple, meaning born while the father is already on the throne. This wasn't just her fighting for her kid. She created a new stabilizing law for the entire empire. Just incredible.
So yeah, she was absolutely the kingmaker. She didn't just pick the next king, she defined how kings would be chosen from then on, locking in her family's legacy for generations.
Okay, so she's a political mastermind. But her power didn't stop there. Not even close. Thanks to some amazing archaeological finds, we now know she was also basically an ancient world CEO.
What you're looking at here are the Persepolis fortification tablets. Archaeologists dug up thousands of these things. They're basically the day-to-day administrative paperwork of the empire, receipts, orders, memos. And what they tell us about Atossa, it is absolutely staggering.
And we're not talking about some royal allowance here. This was a full-blown corporate empire. Just imagine, she owned huge estates, not just in Persia but in Babylonia too, all hers. She commanded her own massive workforce. We have documents where she issues legally binding orders with her own personal seal. Boom, it's law. She's managing her own supply chains of grain, wine, meat, even authorizing travel and supplies for huge groups of people. She wasn't just a queen sitting in a palace. She was a major independent economic powerhouse. All right, so we've got the political kingmaker and the economic titan. But what about her enemies? How did the Greeks see her? Because their writings give us a totally different and really fascinating picture of Atossa.
So the Greeks basically gave us two different Atossas. On one hand, you have the historian Herodotus. He paints her as this master schemer, whispering in King Darius's ear, manipulating him into invading Greece to get something she wants. He also includes this incredibly humanizing detail, what might be one of the first recorded mentions of a breast tumor. Then, on the other hand, you have the playwright Aeschylus. In his famous play The Persians, she's the absolute opposite, a noble, dignified, majestic queen. She's basically the moral conscience of the entire court as it's facing disaster. Two completely different takes from the same rival culture.
So where does that leave us? What's the final verdict on Atossa? Well, when you put all the pieces together, the bloodline, the brilliant political moves, the economic empire, and even what her enemies thought of her, a really clear picture starts to form.
She was the dynastic glue, right? The living link between the three most important kings. She was the key to Darius's legitimacy. He might not have held the throne without her. She held the official status of a great lady, a huvakaka, which meant she had her own seal, her own land, her own economic power. And her character? Come on, strategic, totally power-conscious, and without a doubt the driving force of the royal court.
You can really boil it all down to this. If Darius was the man who organized the Persian Empire, the one who put all the systems in place, Atossa was its architect. He organized it, she designed its future.
And that really leaves us with one last big question. We had to piece Atossa's story together from, administrative records and the writings of her enemies. It just makes you wonder. How much of our history has been shaped by incredibly powerful women just like her, whose stories were never fully told?